problems, long lead times, shrinking profit margins, high complexity, and sometimes I've got to ask, what is the goal? And the goal, as far as Lean Six Sigma improvement, is easier, faster, safer, better, cheaper. Let's not make this too difficult. In order to get easier, faster, safer, better, cheaper, and within any kind of a business, whether it's a manufacturer or whether it's a service organization, we want to drive out waste and drive out variation of our processes. Waste can be looked at as a series of steps, any kind of work steps. Non-value add, which is wasteful, followed by value add, followed by non-value add. And we want to identify where those wasteful steps are in order to get those out of the process. So any process, even as simple as scheduling a meeting, the first step might be trying to find an email address. So you're searching, finding, probing to find the right address before you can enter it in the invitation. The second one is to find a time that suits the team. So you're calling, you're polling, you're probing to find out what the time of the meeting is. We would consider that all non-value add. Once the time is assigned, we've got to figure out what the meeting room we're going to meet in. So again, we're looking for what meeting room is available, what the ID is within the scheduling software, and finally we can actually schedule the overall meeting. Our goal within driving out the waste is to have the value add line up side by side with no interruption. If you can get your mind around how powerful that is, you'll be really better off. Value add side by side with no interruption. The second thing that we want to drive out is variation. And we're trying to figure out what are the trivial many, the variables and process parameters that we're trying to manage. We want to separate down the actual vital few so we can actually isolate those and control those. So if you were an owner of a restaurant, the temperature of the oil, the length of time you actually cooked your products, as well as the weight of your products would all be critical X's that you would want to know really what are the operating ranges that make us successful with delivering a plate of food. And so that's really the goal. Now there's a lot of statistics here, and some people do that every day, is actually go in and begin to isolate and really define the control limits of what is good. But for us normal human beings, we just need to understand that variation is bad and to drive it out. So as we talk about driving out waste, to get to these goals, what we're going to want to do is actually pull in standard work. So we want to actually know what are the chemical properties of our materials. How much water should be in the glue? How much tape should be on the box? Different things like that. As far as our equipment, what should be the feed rate? What should be the speeds? What should be the pressures? And define what those are. Methods and even the measurement. What can we measure? How do we measure those? Those are all the things that we actually want to pull into this process. Now, as we defined our goals and we defined really what we want to drive out and pull in, the engine of this is PDCA. And whether it doesn't really matter what type of tool in Lean Six Sigma we're using, it's most likely going to be on a PDCA chassis. Plan, do, check, adjust. Plan, do, check, adjust. And the easiest way that I like to describe this is with a quarterback and a wide receiver. They're going to first huddle together, make a plan on the route they're going to run. The do is actually execution of the play. On the sidelines, the coaches are actually using a stopwatch to check the execution. And then lastly, they come back to the huddle, and what do? They adjust it and do it again. PDCA, plan, do, check, adjust. Plan, do, check, adjust. Driving out the drop passes, driving out the opportunities to make an interception, driving out the inefficiencies in order to actually document what is the best way to execute that pass. Now, as far as plan, do, check, adjust, as far as how to do that, we've got some other recommendations. The first one is don't guess. We want to describe the problem using tools, teams, and data. Within the tools section in Lean Six Sigma, there is a plethora of tools that we can use. As long as we're working within teams and gathering data, then we'll begin to describe really the facts of really what the problem is. A problem that's well described is a problem that's half solved. So get some data. Another expression that we've heard is, and we use very often, is in God we trust, everybody else bring data. And so that's really our goal. The second one is to model it. So we recommend getting string, cardboard, and tape, and we can model almost anything, whether it's a form on an internet page or a website. It could be a form in email. It could be a fixture, a plant layout, an operation room of where our tools are for a surgical procedure. We're going to want to use string, cardboard, and tape and model it. Our advice is to fail fast, fail cheap, fail often, and fail forward. And the more we can go through this PDCA cycle is the more we can drive that waste out and also pull in the standard work. The last part that we'd be really ignorant if we didn't mention is the culture. And so we have the quality of the change times the acceptance of the change is equal to the effectiveness of the change. And we've heard it said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So it doesn't really matter how elegant our approach is. If we haven't gotten buy-in engagement from the stakeholders and key champions there, we're dead on arrival. And so the way to do this is, from a cultural standpoint, is simply to involve them. Involvement equals commitment. And so as a management consultant, I'm never going to go in and push a solution. I'm going to ask a lot of questions, pull the team in and involve them. I'm going to have their commitment, get their buy-in, and have an effective change. So we've covered a lot of ground. We're driving out waste and variation. We're pulling in standard work. We're going through a PDCA engine. We've got some advice on how to do it. Don't guess, model it, and make sure that you observe the culture. The last part is so important that we actually have this as our tagline of our company. TGG's tagline is learn, lead, change. And we believe before we can improve anything, first individuals have to learn. And this is a very, very well-known adult learning model called Bloom's taxonomy. It starts with knowledge and goes all the way through to evaluation. As we begin to go through a PDCA loop, our individuals begin to learn, and then slowly the whole organization drafts behind them, and the organization learns. As my learners begin to stand up, they actually turn into leaders, and that's obviously required with any kind of an improvement. We've got a model here that's called the full range leadership model. It's based on over 100 years of research. Leaders that are very, very passive, very, very ineffective, all the way up through a mode that's very, very effective and very, very active, called idealized influence. And that's obviously the leaders that we want to be. We learn, we lead, and then we change. We have a 2-axis graph that shows really how we define different events or different workshops within that continuum. So that really is an overview of really what change is within Lean Six Sigma. It really shows how TGG is much different from the standpoint that we understand all the mechanics involved, and we're very, very specific at what we do within an engagement with a client. Recent accomplishments is an 80% reduction in distance traveled in Kentucky, 200% productivity for an entire plant in Tennessee, 300% production improvement in Alabama, and we've also brought imports back from China back to the States. Those are some of the success stories that you're going to see whenever you begin to put these mechanics at work for you.